Somehow, we're already halfway through The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, and with episode 3, it was my least favourite episode, but it was still a solid entry. At the start of this one, we do go years in the past to see Rick's first interaction with Jadis since he arrived at the CRM, and also at the same time we do get to see a little bit more of the community of the CRM as well, and looking at like the sort of town square of the place. We then jump to a second flashback which takes place a few hours before the present time, where we see Rick plead with Pearl to let Dana through the CRM screening because she saved his life. So we see Rick there putting the blocks in place to help Michonne. And then finally we're brought up to the point where we were left off last week, where we see Jadis confront Rick. And Rick is really in a corner at the moment because if he tries to escape with Michonne, then all the people at Alexandria will be at risk. But then, you know, what's the other alternative? He just stays at the CRM forever? And you may say, why don't they just go and kill Jadis? Well, she's already got that planned out, because if they kill her, well, she's got a file ready on her computer which will tell the CRM all they need to know. After the opening credits, which does feature both Rick and Michonne at the end of them, because of course they both feature from the start of this one, we do see Michonne showing off her walker killing skills, and we get this pretty cool scene where she yeets one of the heads at the other one. We then get to see the funeral for Okafor take place, and we get General Beale showing off his antique sword, and we get the whole backstory behind that. And I think that sword will come into play probably towards the end of the season, because they won't just put all this time behind this background to this sword if it's not going to be of some significance going forward. Also in this episode, we do see Thawne get promoted, and it's interesting that there's a scene not long after where General Beale asks to speak to Thawne privately in his Jeep. So what that conversation is all about, we don't know, but I think that will again come into play later on. But in terms of Rick, General Beale does talk to him and says that he's not so sure whether he's an asset or a liability yet, and even uses this word called pharmacon, which is something which means you're both the poison and the cure. With everything we've seen so far of General Beale, I don't think this will be a one-season show. It just can't be. We can't get enough of this character within the next 3 episodes. I mean, the next one looks like he's not really in it that much anyway, so that's only 2 more episodes of General Beale, and it just makes no sense. So for me, this is the clearest indication we've got so far that The Ones Who Live will be getting a season 2. Also in that same conversation, General Beale does gift Rick a book which is called Martial Arts, the Book of Family Traditions. That is by a Japanese writer, and this is all a little bit suspicious because of course Michonne does have a katana. She's having nicknames for herself and Judith called Shoto and Daito. And also of course on the phone message that was also in Japanese as well, and so where does this all link in? Later in the episode we do see Michonne speak to the artist who did draw her and Judith on the phone for Rick, and said as well in that same scene that he did struggle to get Carl just right, so it's nice to get a name drop for Carl there. But what is interesting is that this artist knows the name of Michonne, and so he is someone else now on the books who does know her true identity. And therefore, he was the one who did write the Japanese on the phone. And so we might have a link here where, of course, we have a Japanese book, we have someone who knows how to write Japanese. Is there a link between him and General Beale? Perhaps. And if that is the case, that is our spanner in the works. But getting back to the main point of the episode, and that is seeing this friction build between Rick and Michonne, as we see Rick give Michonne a letter, and on that is how to escape the CRM. But as she gets out, she finds out that Rick is not a part of this escape plan, and that he wants to stay there because he has to stay there, otherwise they will come for the 2 of them, and of course the whole Jadis thing will blow up. Rick has it all planned out. There's a walker with the uniform on, there's a whole head smashed in so they can't tell who's who, and just they have to assume that is Michonne dying on her escape. And he talks to Jadis about how she is a hero, and that we get this great clip here.
You're a hero with a shit haircut.
At the end of that letter, Rick does say that if she loves him, she'll go, but of course it's been all this time. She's not just going to go up and leave Rick now after disappointing him. And so the next morning we see Rick look at Michonne as she's going to ham on these walkers. And then they have a meeting, and I think this is a really interesting meeting because Rick gets him to one side. She pulls off his helmet in a lot of aggression, but then she doesn't say anything at all. She just gives him different looks here and there, and it's really good acting there from Danai Gurira. And it reminds me a bit of Michonne back in the early days where she didn't really speak a lot, and it just used her facial expressions to tell you all the story you need to know. Something I really liked about this episode is that our characters are constantly walking on eggshells, and we're not so sure what these new characters are going to do. But there's 2 instances involving Thawne. where we see her interviewing Michonne, and Michonne's having to stay really firm to her story about her being Dana, and we're not so sure exactly if Thawne is going to pull out the knife, and Rick's very unsure about that as well. And of course later we see in the woods as well, with her about to pull the trigger on Michonne, and Rick does become aware of that just in time as well. And so Thawne is really on the edge. You know, she could do anything at any point at the moment, and that's what's making her quite interesting. Also, I must not be the only one, but when Rick and Michonne were pushing that bomb in the woods, it did remind me a lot of that scene where they're in the cars and they're taking down those walkers and just slicing them through the middle. Towards the end of the episode, Michonne notices Jadis for the first time, and that really sets off a light in Rick's head that he's got to get Michonne to leave as soon as he can. And so he goes full on aggressive mode and tells Michonne that everything they had is broken, and you can see how broken she is with the look she gives him, and she can't believe what she's hearing. Which brings us to the shocking end of the episode, which involves Michonne pulling Rick and jumping out of the helicopter. And so for an episode where Michonne has said very little to Rick in terms of her response to him, she takes matters into her own hands. From the promo for episode 4, I can't wait to be a fly on the wall for these conversations between Rick and Michonne. And from this season, we've seen the first episode, it was Rick's episode. Second episode, it was Michonne's. This third episode, it's both of them, but Rick's taking control. And now in this fourth episode, it's going to be Michonne to take control. So perhaps next episode, this could be a chance for Michonne to tell Rick about RJ, or they might just leave it until the season finale. Maybe, you know, she'll get the artist to draw a picture of him or something. I don't know, but I think they will definitely have that in this season at least. I don't think they're going to wait until maybe a season 2 for RJ to be known to Rick. But the good thing about this show is that every week I'm not sure what we're going to see. It's a very exciting show because there's so many surprises in store. But when it comes to this episode, I'm not sure how long Thawne's going to last because she seems on edge already. And then for Michonne to pull Rick out of the helicopter, you know, in the night as well, that is pretty ballsy. But yeah, I think they do land okay in the end. I think they do land in some water. I think they have said that.
It's not a liquid!
But that's just my quick thoughts on The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live. Did you enjoy this episode? Do you think it was your favourite episode? Was it your least favourite episode? Let me know all that down below. And if you fancy another video, on screen is my review for Dune Part 2.